Jimmy's wife's words were like a warm spring breeze, sweeping through his heart and solidifying his wavering spirit. With the support of her family, the hopes of her students, and the admiration of her team's coach, she returned to the minor league field. She set aside distractions, played relaxedly. Her pitch speed was faster and more stable. In the season's final game, she struck out 3 batters in a row, sending the opposing team's hitters into a tizzy, leading her team to victory. However, after the season, Jimmy rushed home eagerly. Before leaving, she bid her coach farewell, who said, Hearing this, Jimmy choked up for a moment. All those years of persistence and effort had finally paid off. To Jimmy's delight, the team extending its olive branch was from Texas, which was undoubtedly the best outcome. She stepped onto the field of her dreams while being closer to her family, freed from the heart-wrenching pain of longing. She shared the joyous news with her wife, who was equally thrilled. She handed the phone to their son, and Jimmy excitedly said to him, the news of Jimmy joining the major league swept through the town like a spring breeze. The students excitedly spread the word. This honor belonged not just to Jimmy. It became a source of pride for the whole town, and the residents flocked to the stadium to witness Jimmy's debut on the major league stage before the game began. Jimmy warmed up actively, crisp pitch sounds echoing, pleasing the star team coach. Before long, Jimmy's wife and kids arrived at the game, prompting Jimmy to set down her gear. She hurried to the fence, tightly grasping her wife's hand, exchanging warmth that had been missed for months. It was the first family reunion in months. Jimmy smiled with tears, looking at his wife and kids. Happiness ceased to be abstract, it turned concrete. As the game neared, Jimmy had to set his family aside temporarily. She returned to the bench, awaiting her turn. Time ticked by, and the game was in the second half. Jimmy still hadn't got the call to play. The deficit weighed like a boulder on his heart, his energy pent up with nowhere to go. After getting the call, the coach finally called Jimmy. Jimmy perked up, grabbed gloves, and went to the bullpen. Her son spotted his father instantly and knew his hero was about to enter the game. This was no simple call to action. He symbolized years' accumulation and dreams call. At that moment, Jimmy's heart raced with subtle nerves. Yet it also held a resolute faith. She knew this step spanned 3 decades of dedication, and she now stood center stage. The crowd applauded, students cheered, family prayed as the announcer introduced her. Who could have imagined this 35-year-old was a science teacher just 3 months ago, now standing on the major league field? What an inspiring standing on the mound. The coach reassured her not to be nervous, even though she was facing one of the world's best players. But Jimmy wasn't afraid. With focused eyes, she threw with all her might. The ball flew like lightning. Caught the opponent off guard. Jimmy's first pitch hit 98 mph, followed by the second. Both swift and precise, her opponent had no time to react. Just one more good pitch now. The batter would be struck out. During this critical moment, the stadium fell silent as if one could hear a heartbeat. Everyone held their breath. Everyone awaited the outcome. As Jimmy took her stance, her focus intense while the batter locked eyes. The batter tried to spot weakness in her gaze and moves, but Jimmy stayed steady, throwing another good pitch. In this major league debut, Jimmy delivered a performance so flawless in her limited time that it helped the team turn the game around. It opened the curtain on her future major league career, and after the game, countless media outlets rushed to cover her. They interviewed this middle-aged dreamer who never gave up until achieving her dreams. Jimmy looked up to discover that behind the spotlight stood a familiar figure with white hair. Jimmy focused her eyes to see. It was his elderly father, seeing his son play baseball for the first time in over 30 years. Jimmy felt confused and moved. She was puzzled as to why her father had shown up at the scene. He choked back his emotions and spoke a few words before turning to leave, but Jimmy called out to him to stop. She called out the long-awaited dad and handed him a baseball from tonight's game. When she was little, her father seemed like an insurmountable mountain, a cold barrier between Jimmy and her dreams. But which father doesn't wish for their child to thrive? Now that Jimmy had reached the shores of her dreams, the white snow on her father had melted away, turning into a gentle stream that nourished Jimmy's heart. The bond between father and child often needs no words, just a simple dad, a humble gift, a tender glance, a regular visit reveals their love. Then Jimmy turned and noticed her wife quietly waiting nearby, providing steady support for Jimmy, allowed her to pursue her dreams without worry. The couple stepped out of the venue hand in hand, and what lay before Jimmy left her in shock. The town's residents had gathered, showering her with heartfelt congratulations. The children ran towards her, bursting with pride for having such an extraordinary father. Jimmy had become the town's hero. She became a role model, her story to be told for generations. An ordinary teacher, she was inspired by her students' fervor. That small flame in her heart ignited into a blazing inferno on the stage of her dreams, making her, at 35, the oldest rookie in Major League Baseball history. This was enough to shock people. Even more astonishing, it was a true inspirational story of Jimma's success. Success stemmed from her talent, persistence, late blooming, and others' support. Throughout life, everyone has dreams but often faces insurmountable obstacles. Though human potential is limitless, human energy is limited, especially with family and children. Distractions multiply, causing many to set aside their dreams. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe for more exciting tales.